You did what every top advisor is told. Build something that's yours, your standards, your approach, your name. And when production grew, reputation was built, and people trusted your judgment, and it felt like you were becoming that person. But there's a truth that never gets said out loud. Your success doesn't automatically build ownership. It builds alignment. And that alignment can turn into a ceiling faster than you realize. Today, I'm breaking down how that ceiling forms and the identity patterns that keep top advisors repeating what worked instead of redesigning what's possible. I was a top performing wealth advisor, leader, and executive in the wealth management industry for 23 consecutive years, building and running multi-billion-dollar businesses. Few ever get insider access to what it actually takes to reach the top levels in this business. I launched EliteVate to change that. This is my mission. So what are you going to learn from today's conversation? 1, how your success built through system alignment becomes mistaken for ownership. 2, where your ego turns precision into dependency and stalls out your growth. 3, why consistency disguised as evolution creates the most for you. And 4, how one intentional redesign breaks these identity patterns and restores your direction. You know what makes this ceiling so difficult to see is how gradually it forms. It doesn't feel like losing ground. It feels like being consistent, busy, and successful until you one day realize that everything around you is moving, but your business isn't actually evolving. It's just repeating what worked before. And there's a progression behind that shift. It starts off with how you define ownership, strengthens throughout how you protect control, and then it locks in through the comfort of being familiar. Let's start with ownership. You know what? You learn the metrics. You mastered the rhythm. You executed a plan exactly the way it was designed. And for you, that worked for a long time. The system you work in gave you the structure and a predictable path. It was your launch pad, but your next level isn't built by operating the system better. It's built by having the system operate through your own thinking. And here's where it shows up for you. You start running the same conversations, even when your judgment could lead. You set goals that match the environment instead of your direction. You'll measure your progress by the scoreboard instead of whether the business is actually evolving. And for everybody else looking outside of you, you look steady. But internally, your momentum is quietly being stalled because you thought success meant ownership, but it didn't. All it means is that you've mastered a system someone else designed. And I realized early as an advisor, I couldn't let my goals get rewritten by the environment I was in. Accountability always had to start with me first. So here's how you tighten the gap between alignment and real ownership. 1, measure your conversations. Are they familiar because they work or because changing them would expose your thinking? How about your priorities? Are they set by your direction or the rhythm around you? What about progress? Is it measured against your standard you set or the system scoreboard? And then finally, identity. Are you operating as who you were or who you are now? Because you didn't work this hard to maintain a business someone else shaped. You need to operate at the level you intended, not the level the system will always accept. So let's look at the next stage, ego constraints. You built your success on precision, knowing what matters, how to position, and how to move a client forward. And over time, those moves you made became your instinct. And they worked, so you trusted them. They became your logic, the same thinking that starts every time you run a new meeting. Same opening questions, the same transitions, same explanations for why something matters. To you, it feels like mastery, but all it is repetition disguised as your certainty. And your confidence, it becomes conditioned. The same wins, using the same thinking, create the same outcomes. Clients change, markets change, complexity changes, but your approach stays familiar because familiar kept winning. And this isn't arrogance. It's your conviction built through results. And that conviction eventually becomes a limitation, not because you lack capability, but because success trained you to see one path more clearly than the others. And you'll reach a point where the thinking that built your advantages become the boundary that caps it. Control isn't doing it your way. Control is having more than one way when the moment demands it. Because you thought control meant quality. It didn't. It meant everything depends on one pattern and nothing grows beyond it. And I've seen this across every level of performance, and I lived it myself. So here's where you expose the patterns that keep your logic too narrow. 1, are you responding to the person in front of you, or is the pattern you've seen 100 times? 2, are you using the move that usually works, or the one the situation specifically requires? 3, are you moving so fast through your own logic that you stop discovering what actually matters? And finally, are you relying on what you know or what you're still willing to learn in the moment? Because your control isn't involvement, it's range. The ability to shift your lens when the moment demands a different one. In our last phase, defensive comfort. You've mastered how to perform inside the system, the metrics, the structure, the rhythm of what success looks like. And on the surface, that mastery feels like evolution, but it isn't. It's just your adaptation dressed up as progress. You've adjusted when they've adjusted. You proved you could keep up. And you built a career on perfecting the system, not shaping it. And over time, the system, it stopped being your framework. It became who you are and your definition. And you're not adapting to stay relevant. You're adapting to it to stay recognized. And you thought evolving with the system meant adapting. It did. It meant getting better at the same game while the business quietly stopped changing. And I've watched countless advisors convince themselves that they're growing because everything around them keeps moving. So here's how to see the difference between adapting and actually evolving. 1, you refine, but you don't redesign. You improve what works, but you don't question whether it should still exist. 2, you adapt, but only to direction. So when the environment shifts, you'll follow, but you don't lead. And you continue to repeat because it feels right. Your rhythm proves control, but it doesn't build anything new. And finally, you protect and don't progress. You'll defend your consistency because it defines you. And real growth, it doesn't come from perfecting what already works. It comes from redesigning something new through your own thinking. And that's not motion, that's authorship. Your identity is not how you operate. It's how people around you have learned to expect you to operate. And over time, the people adjust in ways you don't see. They will anticipate your approach, your style, your thinking. They'll shape what they think you bring based on what they believe you typically prioritize. And they'll filter opportunities based on the version of you they experience the longest. And nobody will say this to you outright, but everybody adjusts around the patterns you repeat. And that's how your identity becomes a constraint, quietly and long before performance ever reflects it. Success got you to this level, but ownership is what's going to take you past it. Choose the one identity pattern showing up in your practice today. Ownership that feels safe, ego that shapes your thinking, or comfort that disguises repetition. Then remove one behavior you've been protecting instead of redesigning, because you don't evolve by staying aligned. You evolve by choosing what you're willing to rebuild. Every week I break down the real strategies behind top performance for wealth advisors and leaders ready to operate at the level they've been built for. This is EliteVate. We cut through the fluff, no hype, no theory, just strategy, psychology, and execution. If this hits home, subscribe. You're not just watching and learning, you will become the model others follow.